slightly on the dull side. We'll go to another... We'll take a rather wider question from Judy Chera, please. Judy.
Has the British public become less compassionate since Ken Loach's 1966 film Cathy Come Home?
Which was... it was a film that was made 50 years ago, and I suppose behind it has the British public become just less compassionate over the last 50 years? Dear?
I don't think so at all. I am a fairly new arrival to this country, and I do find it one of the most welcoming, one of the most hospitable countries in the world, which is why a lot of people want to come here. So no, I wouldn't say that it's become less passionate at all.
Compassionate.
Less compassionate or less passionate at all.
Certainly not less passionate.
Certainly not that. So no, that is certainly not my experience. But are we actually going on to talk about Ken's film? Because
far away.
Well, absolutely. Well, first of all, congratulations, Ken, for the Cannes accolade. That's excellent news. What struck me about this film really is how, in a very gritty, very grim film, the one thing that works are the social support networks. So the protagonists get let down by the state machine over and over again. Who stands by them? The society, the community. And I think that's a wonderful thing that came out of that. That definitely came out.
So wrong.
That definitely came out of the film.
All right, Ken Loach.
I was meant as a compliment, Ken.
Is the country less compassionate? Yes, I believe it is. When we 60 years ago, after the post-war settlement was still in place, where what we believed in was the common good, and people worked together for the common good. And then there was a change, a political change, and it marked a social change as well. And the common good went out of the window, and it was about private greed, private projects, and the common good went out of the window. And it's crystallized in the way we treat the most vulnerable people. And it's crystallized in the way we tell people who are desperately sick that they won't get any financial support unless the state assesses them and tells them they are fit to work. And it's in the sanctions. We came across one man who took his pregnant wife to hospital. She was in premature labour. He missed his appointment to the job centre, and his money stopped. And that was one of hundreds and hundreds of stories we heard. And people live in fear. A man was ill, he fell down, he injured himself badly. They called the ambulance. He was afraid to get in because they were afraid they would keep him in hospital overnight and he'd miss his appointment to the job centre. People are living in fear. And it's absolutely an intolerable way to live. There's a conscious cruelty in the way the system is being imposed. Because the state knows what it's doing. The Tory government knows exactly what it's doing.
So why isn't Labour more popular?
Why isn't Labour more popular? Is because the Parliamentary Labour Party has done its best to undermine its leader. That's why it's more popular. And people won't vote for a divided party. It's quite clear. But if you look at the policies, the Labour Party would abolish assessments, which of course it should do. And we know that the government knows it's wrong, because if you appeal against the assessment, you will almost certainly win. So they know they're teasing people in a very cruel way. And what happens when you're sanctioned? Your life is forced into chaos, and people are going to food banks, and there were 1,100,000 food parcels given. 1,100,000 people who would starve otherwise, and over 400,000 of those went to children. How can we live in a society in which hunger is used as a weapon?
It's
an absolutely intolerable situation.
All right,
I completely agree with you that the system does not work, and I'll tell you what. In this, the specific sort of benefit that is discussed in your film, which affects the protagonist, the manual for that is 3 times the size of War and Peace. It is a defunct system. It does not work. It treats people as numbers. That's absolutely right.
It has an ideological reason. It's to tell people that their poverty is their own fault.
All right.
Why is that the society's fault? Who are these people who are going out and arranging these food banks? Why do you call those people not
Let's hear from the government. Let's hear from the government minister who's here, Greg Clark.
David, I think there is a strong, and I'm proud of the fact, there is a strong political consensus in the UK, across parties and across the country, that we should have an effective system of help to people that fall into difficulties. And is that perfect at every stage? Well, frankly, it wasn't during all of the time past. As a constituency MP, and those of us that are, will know that every week in our surgeries we have people that come to see us who have fallen outside the bureaucracy. There are so many challenges of being kept on waiting phone lines and all the rest of it. And so you need to constantly reform the system so that it can be there to help people. And that is what we've been progressively doing.
What do you make of what Ian Duncan Smith said, which when he resigned, which was that it looks to me as though it doesn't matter because these people don't vote for us?
Well, I don't agree with that at all. And so I think any member of Parliament, I think, would say that the work that they do to help the most vulnerable people in society, in their constituency, is one of their most important tasks. And if I take one example, one of the things that I've had over the years from people in my constituency is that the bureaucracy in the administration has meant that if they get a job, for example, they've been very concerned that if that doesn't work out, they will go back to square one with the benefits system, and it's such a risk that it puts them in a quandary, in a real dilemma as to what to do. To sort that out, to simplify it, as Ian Duncan Smith actually helped do through the universal credit, was a big step forward, and they are the kinds of improvements that we should take.
All right.
But we are a society that believes in helping the vulnerable.
Compassion. You, sir, in spectacles, sir.
Does a compassionate society use its foreign aid budget to force through trade deals with third world countries?
That is a very, very apt point, particularly at the moment with many of the other things that are going on. In my view, absolutely not. One of the proudest things that the Lib Dems did in coalition was to enshrine the 0.7% into law to make sure...
The government did that collectively. It's a bit ungenerous.
However,
that was a joint...
I agree that was joint. What is different is that the moment you start to ally it to trade, it ceases to be aid for aid's absolute most important thing, which is
aid is
support
aid,
and
it's
compassion.
not anything else.
But can I come back to the question
Come back
as well,
to Judy's question.
if I can?
Are we
Because I
less
think
compassionate? Well, I'll come to you, Judy, if I may, and see what you think in a moment.
the work capability assessment, which is absolutely the core of the point of Ken's film, which is excellent. If you haven't seen it, it really is worth seeing, is not fit for purpose. But it wouldn't be where it is 7 years after Labour introduced it in 2009 if there wasn't an acquiescence in the wider public. And I'm sorry to say that things like disability, hate crime and other things are just showing that there is less compassion than there has been. There are extraordinary people who are very compassionate, but this process absolutely fails. We tried to change it. For example, when it first came in, it was only the assessors, no relevance back to the original doctor on whether the person should or shouldn't actually be seen, which is the whole pivot of Ken's film. It clearly doesn't work, even with the doctors having some input these days. It absolutely doesn't work.
But surely you don't need an assessor. You take the word of the doctor and the consultant. You're doing everything else. You don't need a state assessor to do it. Well, the doctor and the consultant will tell you.
You are absolutely right, and that is why.
So why did it continue while you were in government?
Because we were trying these revisions to see if it would work. It's clearly not working, and it's got to stop. Falling outside the bureaucracy is an easy way of putting it. The bureaucracy itself is a substantial part of the problem.
What do you think, Judy? What do you think?
No.
I
Let me
think
just
we
go
are-
to the question of what
I
you've
think we
heard
are
so far.
becoming less compassionate, and I think the government and the media are encouraging us to become less compassionate. We've got these TV shows where we're encouraged to ridicule benefit claimants. And we've got headlines in the newspaper saying, oh, this family gets this much in benefit. And we don't see the underlying things, like we don't see that actually the housing benefit doesn't go into the pockets of the claimants, it goes to the landlords who probably don't need benefits because they're probably quite rich already.
Yeah.
I'm very glad this issue has come up because I think it's really important about compassion. And the DWP assessments should get much more attention than they do about fitness for work. At the heart of them, there ought to be dignity and respect for the individual. They ought to be the core characteristics, and they aren't. And it's getting worse, and there are terrible consequences. The father of one of my constituents that I've been helping, her father, Michael O'Sullivan, was assessed as fit for work when for many years he'd obviously been not fit for work, had mental health issues, and he tragically took his own life. And the coroner said there was a causal link between his intense anxiety and the assessment and the consequences. His daughter has been asking for answers to how that happened, what went wrong, why there wasn't the compassion and the respect. And she hasn't got answers for 3 years.
Should there be an assessment process in your view, or do you think that itself is misguided?
I don't think you can simply do away with any assessment, but I think it is time for a real review of how these assessments are actually working. There's been growing concern. I think all MPs have had this. I've had this tragic case in my constituency, and it really deserves to be looked at.
Debbie Abrams has said that she will abolish the assessments. That's your policy.
I think they should
Thank God she has said it, because it's bringing misery and chaos to people's lives.
I certainly think it should be fundamentally reviewed.
The woman there, and then I come to you, so then I come back to you. Yes. The woman with spectacles in the middle there.
I think the problem is with the system is that it's viewed differently from either side. So those that create the assessments, they demonise everybody that is part of that system. Everyone that needs that system is painted with a general brush, and they are just there to get money. Whereas everyone on the other side, they want compassion, they want them to understand that they're going through hardships, and all they want is to live, and all they want is for other people to understand that.
And you, sir?
I'm chief exec of a charity, and the question was put about whether compassion is something about society. Now, we've got politicians arguing about political points, but I see every day the compassion that the British public pour out in the giving to charity, the generosity and the kindness of people in this country. You must never forget that.
Can I say something on that?
Yes.
Because I think compassion's absolutely. Of course you'll find people very compassionate, but it's not reflected in our politics. That's the problem. It's not reflected in what they're doing.
Greg Clark.
And can I say also...
To make a couple of brief points. One is that we are, as a nation, extraordinarily generous in our giving to charities, and we should be proud of that. But I just wanted to make a point about what Ken was saying about the people that work in the system, the people that are employed in job centres and in the benefit system.
No, I didn't speak about that at all. I didn't speak about them. They're under incredible pressure,
they do,
and they have targets and they have expectations. I'm sorry, I didn't mention them.
They're in this in order to do the best for the people
yes,
they
I
serve.
didn't talk about the DWP staff.
For that.
Well, wait a minute, Greg. You may be dissimulating. What was the point you were making, Ken? And then let Greg answer.
I didn't mention...
which was the point you were mentioning?
I mentioned the point about there is compassion, of course, with people, but it's not reflected in the government's actions. The DWP staff are under incredible pressure, and we know there are targets and expectations, and if people don't sanction the number of people they're meant to sanction, they go on a personal improvement plan. And we talked to hundreds of people who work at the DWP under your guidance and instructions, and they are told to sanction people. If they don't sanction them, then they're in trouble.
Greg?
I think that's unfair to...
It's true.
Because unfair to the people who work in the system. It's a difficult job administering a benefits system, whatever your professional role in that is. You've got to be fair to the people, quite rightly, who are claiming benefits. You need to be fair to those who pay for them, and they have to make incredibly difficult decisions, and I think they should have our support in making those decisions. And it is worth saying that
your instructions that's the problem. It's the instructions from the government is the problem.
I mean, it is a fictional film, and people seeing that should not think that these are the ways that people are behaving in job centres.
Okay. You, sir.
The emphasis has been put on the work capability assessment. I think, for starters, that our benefit system is probably the most generous system in the Western world. And you were talking about people who are incapable of working. If we look at other parts of the benefit system, like housing benefit, and in-work benefits, like tax credits. That's where we want to make the changes, and not on the very small part of the budget, which is work capability.
Okay.
Unemployed people.
And you, sir. Here.
I mean, we shouldn't have these assessors. We have qualified doctors, consultants. They decide if a person is disabled or not, and not an assessor who's not professionally trained in the first place. And they only cost us money as well.